Bernie Sanders has clearly stepped away from his usual playbook, drifting so far from his long-standing narrative that it is difficult to pinpoint where the argument is even supposed to start. Pay attention, because what follows comes across less like a reasoned critique and more like a public breakdown unfolding moment by moment.
It is apparently not good enough that the top 1% today own more wealth than the bottom 90%. Just not good enough. We could do better than that.
At a recent Senate hearing, Sanders launched into his well-worn message about wealthy elites and a flawed economic system, repeating themes he has relied on for decades. This time, however, the approach did not land the way it usually does. Bernie Moreno stepped in and redirected the discussion, calmly outlining how Democratic policies have contributed to the financial pressure many Americans are experiencing. What could have been another predictable exchange instead became an awkward and revealing confrontation.
And yet have record deficits. Why? Because when you give Democrats control of our budget, what happens?
Today, we are breaking down that entire interaction from start to finish, walking through each claim, each response, and every tense moment that followed. If you believe that facts matter more than party loyalty, that no side owns the truth, and that open debate is still worth having, go ahead and subscribe and stick with us as we dive into what really took place.
At a time of massive and unprecedented income and wealth inequality, Republicans look around them and they say, wow, we got 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Very richest people are becoming phenomenally richer. Working people are struggling. What's the solution? Well, obviously the solution is to give massive tax breaks to the rich and make a very bad situation even worse.
It follows a familiar pattern whenever Sanders speaks. A message delivered so many times that it no longer sounds like analysis and instead feels like a catchphrase. The targets never change, the tone stays the same, and the anger feels prepackaged. What adds another layer of irony is that this repeated critique of wealth and influence is also what helped elevate Sanders into financial comfort himself.
It is apparently not good enough that the top 1% today own more wealth than the bottom 90%. That is rather phenomenal. But in my Republican colleagues' eyes, the wealthy and the powerful need even more help. 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%, just not good enough. We could do better than that. So not only should the very wealthy be asked to pay their fair share of taxes, the Republicans believe that we should give huge tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires.
Sanders has served in Congress since 1991, spanning decades of floor speeches, hearings, and headline-grabbing remarks. Yet when you move past the messaging and examine measurable outcomes, the record appears surprisingly limited. A 2020 analysis showed that only 3 of the 421 bills he sponsored became law, roughly 0.7% of his total efforts. The details make it even less impressive. 2 of those measures involved renaming post offices in Vermont, not sweeping reforms or landmark legislation. Put plainly, the area where Sanders has seen the most undeniable success is building personal wealth, while continuing to project constant frustration and promising progress that many argue never arrives. That is why, when Bernie Moreno took the floor, he focused less on rhetoric and more on challenging what he saw as political performance. Here is the substance of his argument.
I think we need to kind of go back in time for just a little bit, not quite as much as in Back to the Future. Let's just go back to 2020. There was an election in 2020. The Democrats gained control of the Senate and the White House. And what's been the result? During the 4 years of President Trump, his first term, it was never better for working class Americans. Real wage growth grew. The middle class was doing better. Our economy was doing fantastic. The Republicans had passed the TCJA, which gave tax relief to all Americans. And we received, and this is very important, the federal government received a record amount of revenue. So even though there was tax cuts for the wealthy was the headline, by the way, that line is as old as dirt and it's totally false. While the tax rates were cut, tax revenue was at a record level.
At its core, the issue is not complex, nor is it confined to academic theory. It is grounded in basic economic principles repeatedly demonstrated throughout history. Consider the 1950s, a decade often celebrated for economic expansion. Nominal tax rates were extremely high. Income above $50,000 at the time roughly $470,000 today, faced a 75% marginal rate. At $200,000, about $1.9 million today, the top rate climbed to 91%. What is often left out is that this period became infamous for widespread tax avoidance. Wealthy individuals and corporations did not simply pay those rates. They employed accountants, exploited deductions, and structured earnings to minimize their tax burden, meaning actual revenue fell short of expectations. John F. Kennedy acknowledged this reality in 1962, arguing that lower tax rates could stimulate growth, attract investment, and ultimately increase government revenue. His reasoning was pragmatic, not partisan. When those tax cuts passed in 1964, economic activity increased, GDP rose, and growth followed for years. Moreno pointed to this history as evidence that many modern democratic economic proposals overlook real-world results in favor of ideas that sound appealing but fail in practice.
When you give Democrats control of our budget, what happens? Give you some examples. When my colleagues talk about how they defend the working class, I think the working class spoke pretty clearly on November 5th of 2024 and said, thank you, but no thank you. So what can happen in my old world of owning car dealerships? Mr. Chairman, you could walk into one of my dealerships, be a multi-millionaire, pick out a beautiful custom-made Rolls-Royce Spectre, where the audio system upgrade is $21,000. The logoed headrest in the back seat are $1,500. The umbrella with a logo could be 10 grand. You can lease that car. And thanks to the amazing and remarkable policies from the Democrat Party, the federal government will give you a check for $7,500. That is a bill that became law called the Inflation Reduction Act. Giving Rolls-Royce lease customers $7,500 lowers inflation?
That argument extends beyond the Inflation Reduction Act, a title critics say does not reflect its outcomes. The same structural issues appear across multiple policies once examined closely. Expanded Obamacare subsidies offer a clear example. Under those changes, higher-income households became eligible for government assistance, blurring the distinction between a social safety net and broad financial support. These were not minor benefits. In some regions, a family earning $400,000 annually could have qualified for close to $1,200 per month in subsidies by 2026 had the expansion continued. That represents substantial aid directed toward households already financially secure. When programs are built this way, misuse becomes difficult to prevent. Past cases, such as poorly supervised initiatives in Minnesota that resulted in major losses and fraud, illustrate the risk. Similar concerns now surround these healthcare subsidies, yet meaningful safeguards have not been implemented. Moreno used these examples to argue that when ideology takes priority over oversight, accountability suffers. He then outlined the broader consequences of such policies without softening his criticism.
How did that bill become law, you ask? Did it get 60 votes? Rigorous debate? No. They did it through reconciliation. And Kamala Harris broke the tie-breaking vote so that multi-millionaires could have their fifth vehicle parked in Palm Beach with a check for $7,500 thanks to the U.S. taxpayer. We have seen program after program that the Democrats are crying foul about, saying Americans did not vote for this. Oh, absolutely they did. Americans are sick and tired of political people here in Washington, D.C. spending our money and burning it.
This leads to the central takeaway. Ronald Reagan once remarked that the most frightening words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." That quote endures because many believe history continues to reinforce it. Government intervention often introduces inefficiency, distorted incentives, and unintended consequences. There is also an uncomfortable reality that is rarely discussed openly. Many elected officials are seen by critics as prioritizing power, influence, and personal gain over meaningful reform. While speeches may sound principled, outcomes frequently tell another story. Now it is your turn. Share your perspective in the comments and let us know where you stand. If you found this analysis helpful, like the video and subscribe so you do not miss future breakdowns. And most importantly, keep questioning what you are told.